Hello there. I would like to make a video that I've been meaning to make for months actually, about the COVID-19 situation as regarding humanity and who we are as human beings. And I'm going to do two videos about this, and this first one is going to look at freedom and the second one is going to look at AI. I'm also going to use the EDM, the energy dynamic model, to illustrate this. And so if you want to find out more about that, please go to the website www.energydynamicmodel.com. I'm not going to go into massive detail about the EDM. It's just really handy to use for this purposes of the video. And I'd also like to give credit to Mark Passio, who you can find on whatsonearthishappening.com, for talking about freedom and talking about natural law and talking about how it actually all works. What I do is talk about what actually works as regards you as an individual, as a human being, and what he talks about, although he does touch on that, is more the whole general machine of this world. So I was inspired to make this by listening to him, who, as he was talking about how freedom is more important than anything, including your own safety. So I'm going to illustrate using the EDM why it is so important to keep our freedom and what this COVID-19 is creating. Okay, so let's start. I'm going to keep this as short as possible. I'd like to start with the assumption that yes, the COVID-19 is all true and everything we're being told is true. And I want to start from that assumption because it doesn't matter actually, in a sense, what's going on outside. What does matter is how this is affecting our freedom. So let's say because of this COVID-19, our freedom is starting to disappear. So why is that important? As human beings, we are very, very special creatures, and this has not been taught to you through mainstream education as such. We're taught that we're blood and bones and psychology and hormones, and of course to a degree this is true, but it's only half true, because this physical body of ours and how it works is merely the costume for what is actually happening within us on an energetic level. So what is happening within us on an energetic level manifests through the blood, guts, psychology, etc. So I'm going to talk about what's happening to us within ourselves on a human energetic level. And as I said, I teach this in the Energy Dynamic Model Academy. So if you want to find out more, please go there. I'm going to briefly talk about it now, but I really want to focus on the fact of freedom. So in the Energy Dynamic Model, what we learn as human beings, and this, by the way, has taken now 35 years of research, of observation of how people work by myself through lots of different jobs and supporting people from all sorts of different backgrounds. So this is actually true from an evidence-based analysis and research. And the way people work is they get their energy to carry on through the day from three different sources. One is through their spirit, when we go up and meditate, for example. One is through the mind, which is all about what's happening outside you and what you think about it, what you believe is up there. Are you approved of? What does society think of you? What do you think of society? And it's all about things like watching television, going on computers, getting a good job, that sort of thing. And that's called mind energy, and you get mind energy every day as you go about your life, succeeding or failing depending on whatever it is. And most people are stuck in their mind energy, and mind energy is on a particular frequency, and the frequency that mind energy is on does not create anything, and it also has a complete inability to feel. So a lot of people who are stuck in their mind and are just living their life experience through their mind can't feel much. And this is really important, as we're going to talk about in a minute. The other place that people, human beings, get their energy from is what I call their feel zone, which is kind of around your stomach area. And this is where your feelings are. This is either sad or it's content. And where that is where who you are lives. And this is what I'm going to talk about. So us as human beings have a choice here. We have a choice. We have a choice to how we're going to receive our life experience. Is it going to be through the spiritual way? Is it going to be through the mind way? Or is it going to be through the feel who you are feel way? And you can only focus on one aspect of this at a time. Throughout the day, people may jump from different zones. So they might start off when they wake up, they're probably in their feel zone. So they feel awake, they've awoken, they haven't started thinking yet. So they might start from their feel, then they probably immediately go up into their mind and they start thinking about, right, what have I got to do today? I've got to get the children to school, I've got to go to work. So they kind of go in their mind, and they're probably in their mind most of the day, doing what they should do, carrying out their role as dictated by society, focusing on how well they're doing as regards everyone else. And then maybe they go home and then nip up to the spirit and meditate to have a relax or have a break, for example. But the point is that you can only focus on one. And the one you focus on is the one that you experience life through. So if I'm focusing on mind energy, I'm going to get mind energy back. If I'm focusing on spirit, I get spirit back. If I'm focusing on who I am and what I feel, I get that back. So you can only go in one of these at the same time. When you become very developed, it's slightly different, and the spirit then comes down through you and you start to be able to manifest that through what you do in the real world as a human being in a kind and humble way, given who you are. But you can only do that if you clear your grief, and that's another story. But for the sake of this video, just assume that you can only focus on one of these zones at once. You can only focus on one, and if you focus on one, the other two aren't there. Now, where we live, where who you are lives as a special creature on an energetic level, is in your feel zone. It does not live in your mind, it does not live in your spirit, it's in the feel zone. And in fact, this could be why you could say why we're here, because we're here to manifest who we are, using the information on that, in that, which could be said to be given to us from a god. It could be, or it couldn't be, doesn't really matter for the purposes of this video. But just understand that who you are lives in the feel zone in your stomach area. And who you are is what your brain works out, okay? It's what your brain uses to work out how you feel. It's your ruler. It's the way your brain measures how you feel and what your life experience is. This is really, really important. Your brain uses who you are to measure what you feel. Now, this is not some woo-hoo vague idea of who you are. There's actually particular elements of who you are that I define in the energy dynamic model. I use it to illustrate this by saying that this stick represents who you are, and if you don't know who you are, you just wobble around like a wobbly stick and you don't have any sense of who you are, so you tend to latch onto things like other people, like mind energy, to give you a sense of actually having a form, because if you don't do that, you'd have no form, because you don't know who you are. So once you start to understand who you are, you then become conscious of it, and once you become conscious of it, you can then stand solid, and I'll show you an illustration of that in a minute. But if you don't know who you are, you wobble around like a wobbly stick, and you need to latch onto things. And this thing that you latch onto as well can be things like drinking, drugs, etc. Okay, so you need to know who you are, and the reason that you need to know who you are is so your brain can work out what you feel, because feels is what gets you through the moment as a caring, compassionate human being in society. Now these symbols represent actually elements of who you are. I'll go through them really quick. This is your animal general body, then it's your talent, your preference, your learning style, your experience, your knowledge, and your mindset. Can I do it? And also sometimes that's physical, can I do it too, practical. Okay, so that's who you are, and your brain uses that to measure what you feel. Now once you become conscious of this, once you become conscious of your stick self, here you are, once you become conscious of your stick self, you can stand firm without latching on. Yeah. So there you go. I'm just sort of illustrating this very quickly, because I just need to explain this to you so you understand what I'm going to say in a minute. So just imagine that there's your stick self, conscious of your stick self, and your brain every moment is gathering up what you feel about the situation given your stick self. So am I somewhere where my learning style is being I can understand? Am I somewhere where my experience and my knowledge of the situation is cool, etc. Now there's 10 different things that you need to have a good feel, and I've used wooden sculptures to explain this. So really quickly, there's your animal, okay, and one of the animal ones is safety and health and love and care. And if you notice, if you have them, your humanness body is protected, and you feel this strong, it's protected. Yeah. And then the next things you can feel is things like meaning, purpose, belonging, and identity, which again I represent by wooden circles. And again, if you notice, here you go, if you notice, the T and the P have been covered up. So the T and the P, if these are good, are safe and protected. So if I'm doing something that I'm good at and I prefer to do, and I'm in an environment that is in line with my preferences, then I immediately get a feeling of meaning, purpose, belonging, and identity. So my information, my T's and P's, are able to manifest in the reality by what I'm doing, so I get these good feels. So hopefully you see what I'm getting at. And then there's a couple more, and basically you're protected by your feels. Your stick self, your actual who you are, is protected if you're in an environment that supports this by your feels. So these feels, you can imagine, is like in your stomach area, and I say it's like water, and it's like you've got a big goldfish bowl of sparkling water. That's your energy. You feel resilient, and you can carry on your day, and you actually become a creative human being capable of love and care, and bringing down eventually, when you get there, bringing down eventually the spiritual aspect of all this into this thick dimension, and then you can actually use that to create something in this world that's good. And that's so important, those words. You can create something in this world that is good for you, good for others, and you can nurture each other, and then you can look after each other, and life becomes a very beautiful experience. Now, you can only do this if you have feels. You can only do this if you are strong enough in yourself to have the energy with which to create and to feel. If you haven't got that energy, you can't do it. If you haven't got that energy, if you haven't got these feels that allows you to manifest who you are, if you haven't got them, you have to live in your mind. You have to. Because with your mind is the only other vibration that you can live in this dimension that to a degree will sustain you. Because in your mind, what you might do is you might not know who you are, so maybe you're doing a job every day that is not in line with who you are. You're given money to do that job, so you can go to the shop to buy food, which makes you able to get through the day. So you can exist in this reality if you live through your mind. But exist is the key word, because if you're living through your mind, you cannot access any of these feels, because the mind isn't where feels are. The mind is linear. The mind it's 1 + 1 in the mind equals 11, whereas in who you are, where your feels live, is where you love and you care and you create. And you are actually the person, when you're in the feel zone, given who you are, who has the power. It's actual power. If you're in the mind, you don't have your own power because you're looking for it to be given energy. I call it like fire energy from the outside. So you're not using your own power. Your power is inside you, and you can access that through the feel zone. With your mind, your power is not in your mind, it's outside. And the fact that you're taught the power of the mind is yet another half truth. The mind is very powerful if you let it be, if that's where you live. But all you'll get is more of mind stuff. So you'll get more money, you'll get a bigger house, you'll get more success. But you won't get good feels because it doesn't live there. Feelings don't live there. And that's really what I'm trying to make so clear. Feels live here, measured by who you are in your stomach area. Okay? So what's all this got to do with COVID-19 and freedom? Well, what Mark Passio said, which I really agree with, is that it's so important to be free that it's more important than your personal safety and even health. And it is. And it is. And what's interesting is that people are being made to become unfree because they are frightened of their health and they're frightened, they're scared. And this has two functions. As soon as you're scared and you're looking outside for information, you go and live in your mind. So you can't access your feels, as I said. So you're immediately looking outside, getting fear in, which is actually a negative energy. It's still an energy, but it's actually a negative energy. It can't heal you. It can't do any good for you at all because you're in your mind. You're living in your mind. And that's why stress causes so much dis-ease, because up here, you can't heal. Whereas if you live in your who you are zone, you can create and you can nurture and you can love and you can care, and your body can actually heal itself. That's how it's done. You need to be solid in your feels. So straight away you've got into your mind because you're scared. So straight away you've lost your ability to heal. A lot of your ability to heal anyway, and you have to rely on the outside world to heal you. So you have no power there. Now, the thing is that it's not just about that. But if you, so you might say, okay, so if I don't have health and if I don't have safety, I actually lose these good feels. And that's true. And again, I talk a lot about that in courses I run in the Energy Dynamic Model Academy. And I call it, you have a blank. So if you have no health and you don't feel safe, you have blanks. Yes, you do. And normally that's not good. But in this situation, freedom is so important. It is so important for the reason that I'll show you in a minute. Is that even if you have blanks of safety and health, it's still more important than that. And this is because freedom, if we go back to here, remember, the brain measures your feelings in reference to who you are. So you have to have an understanding and a way to explain who you are, which is your stick self. So if you cannot do that, if you're not able to do that, if you're not able to be your talent, if you're not able to be in situations that you prefer to be in, like indoors, outdoors, in groups, on your own, whatever. If you're unable to be your learning style, how many people like to work face to face, like in real life? If you can't do that, you can't show your learning style. You have to do it on the computer most of the time now. If you can't show your knowledge, your experience of life, what you've learned, what you know, if you're censored and you can't do that, that's gone as well. And if your mind is so scared that you can't do anything because you're in a state of constant fear, that's gone. So basically, all these restrictions have meant you cannot show who you are. And that's worse than having a bad feeling about it. Because at least if you have a sad feeling about who you are, you're feeling. It's still an energy. You're feeling, you're still in that zone. But if you can't manifest any of that stick self because you're just unable to, and the masks, again, the masks is masking. It's masking. It's masking, especially this one. Expression. There you go. Expression. You can't express your stick self. So if you imagine this, and this is the point, if you can manifest who you are, you get good feels. If you are doing that and you have a sad experience about it because people aren't listening to you, or you get abused, you get a sad feel. Okay? Good feel, content feel, sad feel. But at least it's a feel. And I've recently done a video called The Nature of Grief, which is about how a sad feel actually still is an energy, and you still can do something about that. You can still do something with it because it's still an energy and it's still on this vibration. Okay, so even though it's a sad energy, at least it's an energy. But if you haven't got a stick self, if you can't do your stick self and you're not conscious of it, then it's like taking away the brain's ability to work out what you feel. So the brain can't work out what you feel. If this has gone, even if you're conscious of it. So if you can't do that, if you're not allowed to do that, you're not allowed to manifest that at all. Your brain, there's a hole. There's a hole. So although in theory these are possible, you can't manifest them because there's no ruler, there's no measurement, there's no who you are to make it happen in this dimension. There's no, what I sometimes say that who you are is like a magic wand, because if you focus on who you are, and if you know who you are and you focus on that when you make your decisions, you focus the energy. So if I'm going to say if I like apples and I decide to go to an orchard, that's focusing on who I am. I'm going to put my energy into who I am, and at the end of who I am becomes me going to the orchard and picking apples. So that idea I've actually manifested in this reality by focusing on who I am and then doing it. But if you haven't got who you are, if you're not allowed to do your who you are, your brain can't manifest anything because it hasn't got the ruler, it hasn't got the measurement, it hasn't got the ability, it hasn't got the magic wand, it hasn't got the ability to actually manifest anything. And even though there are potentially fields, you can't generate a field because there's no stick self, and they're just, you take these away and there's nothing there. There's nothing there. There's nothing. No thing. There is no thing inside the power tower. The essence, which is the who you are stick, needs these power needs to create a form in this reality of who you are, that you can see, that you can touch, that you can know, that you can experience. If there's no who you are, there's no information, these don't exist. So there is no thing, there is nothing, there is no you inside these feelings. There is no you inside these feelings. So if you can't actually begin to manifest anything in this reality because you haven't got your who you are, you can't do it. You're not allowed to do it. You haven't got any freedom to do it. You're gagged. You can't go out the house. You can't speak your truth. If you can't do that, you can't create a feel. If you can't create a feel, you can't live in the feel zone. And if you can't live in the feel zone, you have to go and live in the mind zone and a little bit spirit. And that's going to be the subject of my next video about that. That's the subject. This is a series of 2 videos, okay? So you're forced to go and live in the mind zone. You're forced because you haven't got a stick self with which to magic your who you are into this world and create good feelings. So feelings go, who you are goes, and you go up and live in here. You have to go and live in the mind. And I want to talk about that in the next video, which is all about that, and also about virtual reality, because this is where all this is going. Because in virtual reality, feels don't exist and we can't create, because we're not in our feel zone, we're not in our who we are, we're not able to perform our magic ability. So the reason that freedom is more important than your own health and safety is because, and this is again in reference to Mark Passio's video about this, the reason that your freedom is more important than your own personal health and safety is because if your own health and safety is negative because you're doing your thing, at least you're still getting a feel. It's a bad one, but you're getting a feel. And also, if you don't do it, your whole stick self will disappear, so you won't even be able to compute what you feel, let alone whether it's a good one or a bad one. So as a society, we need to understand that the fact that we're basing all our decisions on fear and we're going along with not being who we are means we're actually being taken our ability to be a human being away. We're allowing our ability to be a human being to be taken away from us. And that's why freedom is so important. Because only if we are free can we show who we are. And once we can show who we are, we can then make a choice about what to create. And the choices that you make could be to create a better world for everyone. But without this stick self, without the stick self, this is just a hole. And there is no thing in there. And we cannot exist as human beings. I'll talk more in part 2. Thank you very much.